What is happening, family? It is your man, CRB Jr. here at Motown Mafia Podcast, of course, a Big Boss Filmworks production. And to my left is my brother and main man and partner in crime, Brother Lou.
All right, all right.
How you feeling, man?
I'm good, brother.
So we survived a week after the famed chair,
Ooh.
Aquaman. And dramas of the world. It's back at it. We appreciate all the support you guys gave us on that post. Mm-hmm. Then somehow we angered the gods of the algorithm, but anyway, we definitely do it. We would be remiss not to thank you guys for the support there. Thank you guys again for the continued support. The channel continues to grow and on to the next milestone. But as we do here at Big Boss, before we get into this, you guys please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. It really, really helps out the algorithm as we try to grow this thing so we can bring you guys some really quality content and get your feedback and make this venture all that it can be and should be. And on that note, because we're working hard, we got a doc in process, Motown Mafia Reloaded. Just had some communications with Al, so he's Al Prophet. Shout out to the brother
Big
Al
up.
Prophet. I'll be re-linking up with brother Scott Bernstein and really getting the old band together. We were just down in the Bahamas and Florida doing some work on that project. So it is a process. We are very excited about it. I think you guys are going to find it really, really entertaining and very, very educational.
Very much so.
All at the same time. Because we're going to follow up in Motown Mafia Reloaded. This story here for this book here, Motown Mafia, Memoirs of a Kingpin's Kid, which of course chronicles Pop and Eddie and their run from the late 60s all the way through the early 70s. And of course that's where the award-winning documentary based on this book, Motown Mafia, the Eddie Jackson, Courtney Brown story, is based upon, which of course is available on Tubi TV and Amazon Prime and Pluto. So if you have not checked out Motown Mafia, the documentary, before Motown Mafia Part 2, Motown Mafia Reloaded comes out, take a peek. It's award-winning, critically acclaimed, again on Amazon Prime and Pluto and Tubi, and the book is available on Amazon itself. The doc, Motown Mafia Reloaded, we're going to take off where the doc and the book ends and really update you guys on all that happened in this journey and saga that really paves the way to us sitting here now talking to these good people out there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It is truly a saga that the Brown Jackson family and all the other families that came into the orbit that the big man set up.
And intertwined and...
It's a lot. It's a whole lot. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Also available on Amazon is Getting Off Zero. Shout out to brother Ray Tatum down in Atlanta. We got some content we'll be doing in this show about Killer Mike, and also, of course, who's an Atlanta guy, and Ray gave me some feedback on some of the things and questions I had. So always shout out to him and Getting Off Zero. I think Ray is, the website is GOZ Atlanta.
Yeah, GOZATL, I believe.
GOZATL. So shout out Getting Off Zero Atlanta, partner with us on this book. Mind Right, Money Right. Mm-hmm. Also available on Amazon. And then we have all script work being done. We are taking this Big Man on Campus. This is the working title. It will not be the title that stands. But this is based on reality, true story of like my college days and when I really started working for the old man. We changed some names. We changed some places to protect the guilty and the innocent.
Absolutely.
But we're adapting this to a movie. Mm-hmm. Excited working with some screenwriters and Lou overseeing the project there, and we will keep you abreast of this, but it should be hot, man. You know, we're updating the storyline and everything. So, you know, again, it will be fictionalized, but it truly will be based upon all events that really did happen. So, that. Any shout outs you need to give or want to give before we get started, Brother Lou?
Big shout out to Vano at Vano's and Blazing Hookahs.
Blazing Hookahs, Vano's. If you ain't hip to them, you just ought to should be. That's right there on Davison between Linwood and Dexter. Really the city's finest urban apparel for men and women. And then, so again, shout out, just ask for Brother Vano, the proprietor there. He's been a pillar and staple in that community since 05 when me and him put it down over there at Gear Unlimited.
That's right.
131 Dexter. And he's reached out, he's stretched out his footprint over there in the neighborhood with Blazing Hookah, the hookah shop, which is right next door to Vano's, which again is located on Davison between Linwood and Dexter. You can't miss it. He's on the north side of Davison. Big sign that says Vano's, window full of the hottest fashion. Go in there, ask for Kayla, ask for Bow Wow, or ask for Vano's. Tell them the good people here at Big Boss Filmworks sent you Motown Mafia podcast, and they will take really, really good care of you. And on that, wearing this shirt, which comes from Brother Jaron, Rack Certified. Southfield Road, just north of 12 Miles in the Southfield Plaza, right next to the Burlington Coat Factory, specializing in Negro League apparel and Black Greek fraternity. So for you Akas, you Deltas, you Alpha Brothers, 06, your Qs, all of that, your Sigmas, your Phi Beta Sigma, Sigma Gamma Rho, all that. Holiday season's coming soon. Just plant a seed on that. Plus, you got some Labor Day stuff coming. I know it's a lot of Black Greek events. If you guys want some paraphernalia for that to represent your particular organizations, check out Rack Certified on Southfield Road, right north of 12 Mile in the Southfield Plaza. That's right next to the Burlington Coat Factory. So those are good people. We appreciate those people's support and business partnership.
Absolutely.
Over the years. So, so ready to get to it?
Ready to get to it, man.
Well, you know, as we do here at Big Boss Filmworks, we like to chronicle, document, and at least bring back some stories. You know, a lot of these really great stories of the urban street legends got their shine and their plug before this YouTube internet thing started.
Absolutely.
You know, kind of like with we just did something. If you guys didn't check it out, go in the library. We just did some stuff on Pee Wee Kirkland. And obviously we've chronicled Frank Matthews, Freddie Myers, obviously the Detroit team here.
Detroit contingent.
Henry Marzette. And unlike, say, my man Ears to Christ out in D.C. and some of the other stories that have come back to life, or the Freeway Ricky story that came after the internet, some of these street legends' name have been able to get the dialogue and conversation that they deserve. But a lot of these guys who really impacted our culture, who really impacted the streets, their stories and names were ringing prior to the internet, and a lot of them get unmentioned.
Yeah, a lot of unsung heroes in this game.
I mean, if this is the business we're in, of chronicling guys whose impact when they were living that life or in the streets, how it impacted culture. Because half the times I think these kids are hearing their names in these rap songs and not even knowing
who they are.
Who they are, right?
Exactly.
So one of those guys that we believe had a big impact on his particular town, or borough in this case, and surely just New York culture and New York hustler history. Obviously New York City, Harlem in particular, but all the boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, whether it's Queens and Supreme and the Supreme team, Fat Cat, that whole situation. Whether it's Harlem, which, I mean, whether you want to go Nicky Barnes, Guy Fisher, the whole Rich Porter situation, Kevin Childs, Cavario and his people, Butch Cassidy and that whole crew. Legendary guys across the board, you know, they could have their own all-star team on their own.
Absolute.
And same with the Bronx. But on that, a guy we came across is a guy by the name of George Rivera, a.k.a. Boy George, whose name, for those of you too young to remember, there was a group in the 80s called
Culture Club.
And the lead singer of the Culture Club was
Boy George.
And Boy was an extreme character. Today, Boy George would not be much of an extreme character.
Nah, not these days.
But he was making noise. The Boy George look was ringing. You know, George lived the alternative kind of situation.
Yeah, he had something happening.
But I tell you, I bought all that. I bought all the records.
Man, Culture Club was on point with that music too.
If you young people or old people, whatever, if you guys missed it when it was hot, it's free now on the internet. Download Come a Chameleon.
Black Money.
Time won't give me time.
Come on,
time
man.
makes lovers feel like they got some. No, I'm for real, guys. Boy George and the Culture Club was bringing the ruckus in their day.
Yeah.
So this guy, though, George Rivera, who became known as Boy George, he was out of the Bronx, grew up in the Bronx in the 70s. Those who know the history of New York City was really catching hell. New York filed bankruptcy in the 70s. The Bronx in particular got hit like devastatedly hard.
Yeah.
It's not an accident that hip hop started in the boogie down Bronx. Grandmaster Flash and Melly Fails, The Message. Broken glass everywhere. Right? They're talking about what Melly Mel and Grandmaster Flash and those guys are talking about in The Message, which is, of course, just a hip-hop classic. One of the pillar songs that started.
It's been sampled many a time. What's the young lady, I believe it's, what's my man, Boston, from Boston, his daughter.
Benzino?
Yeah, his daughter has a hit off of the sample off of that.
Off of Benzino's daughter's got a...
Yeah,
really?
off The Message.
Shout out to Benzino and that whole Boston crew. You know, it ties back into them. Last time I talked to him, via talking to him, Al was interviewing him. And shout out to Pep Cooper. And Pep's name came. He's like, you know anybody from Detroit? And Al asked Benzino, you know anybody from Detroit?
Right.
He was like, yeah, a couple guys from Detroit used to come out there. I remember the homie Pep used to come out. And he's like, you know Pep? And then he calls me on the phone, and I tell him, they heard the story of Pep's Red Vet and all of that. So shout out to Mr. Cooper. Shout out to Fat Steve, Tracy, Scott Sledge, Vinny, all that whole crew over there off Dexter, all that YBI situation. Shout out, much love and respect always. But yeah, so that's Small World.
Small.
So Benzino's daughter sampled some Culture Club.
Well, it was The Message.
The Message, rather. Which again, so that's, all right, thank you, get me back on point. So yeah, the Bronx, it got hit hard. It was that environment that set the tone for The Message. KRS-One and all of what they're describing is the South Bronx in the late 80s. I mean, late 70s, early 80s.
It's popping back in them days.
Oh, it was going down. But this gentleman, George Rivera, just another product of his environment, but had a real entrepreneurial streak in him. Now, the tragedy of his story, and we'll reiterate that again, he only had a 2-year run, man.
He had much of a...
He's done 30 plus years now. But in that 2 years, he made an impact. So Fat Joe tells a great story. Fat Joe's a great storyteller. Fat Joe tells a great story. Joe is across another Bronx legend.
Big time.
His Terror Squad record label, that crew, the Terror Squad, they didn't start off rapping.
Right. He crossed paths with Eddie Baby, am I correct?
Eddie Baby used to go up to Branson's at 145, and he also used to cop at a place up on 145th in St. Nick that sold this strand of weed called The Woods.
Okay.
And when Eddie Baby would go, Fat Joe would be in there. So he never bought weed. Let me get the story. He never bought directly from Fat Joe, but it seemed very obvious that Fat Joe had some influence over the establishment, as that he would be there holding court, and for, and this is very, very expensive, high-end marijuana. But anybody who know Fat Joe's story, he ain't pretending.
No.
He ain't.
No. He's not a studio gangster.
He ain't a studio gangster. He talking about what he lived and what he did.
Yeah.
So Fat Joe tells the story, as he's an up and coming hustler in the Bronx. He ain't blew up yet. He ain't became the Fat Joe of 7 Series BMWs, and when Fat Joe did his first.
He wasn't quite Joper yet then.
He was not, a long way from Joper. He wasn't Puff weren't hanging out, and
he's a kid basically at this point.
He wasn't with Rock Nation management.
Right.
He's like 15, 16, and he's just, because, Joe, they're doing a documentary actually on Showtime on Joe's life. It'll be out, I think, this fall.
Yeah, and then you got to put big rest in peace to Big Pun. I mean, who was very much.
I mean, part of Terror Squad,
yes.
Terror Squad. But anyway, so Joe is 15, 16, because he left the house like at 14 and started hustling.
Mm-hmm.
And as Fat Joe tells the story, he's out hustling, doing his thing. He's still small time. And some kid's jerking him around for like $200.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe, this is again not me saying Joe like to beat people up or like to fight, but again, he's a product of the Bronx another time.
Right.
Anyway, Joe touching up the kid because he's small time, so he's in a small time fight over about $200, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Joe say this guy pulls up in this real flashy, all AMG'd out, rimmed up, beaming truck, and is basically like, yo, what's going on here? And Joe like, this guy jerking me around with $200. The guy pulls off. The vehicle left an impact on Fat Joe though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Joe says 2 weeks or a month later, another kid's jerking him off over a couple $100. It's rough when you starting off, boy. The grind when you flipping 8 balls and rocks, boy, it be a grind. It do. So I know it. I ain't had to I had to do a lot of that, but I didn't see it enough close. It'd be a grind, boy.
Oh yeah.
And they're gonna run off with $200, and it mean enough to you when that's your re-up money, and it just. So anyway, Joe doing what he got to do to become the Fat Joe that we know him to be. But this time, as he's chasing the kid around the car to collect his money, he says the guy steps out, and I think like the guy's name was Guaco. He says, I may be saying his name wrong, but Spanish name I believe like Guaco. He's chasing this guy Guaco around the car over a couple $100. Some guy steps out of the crowd and is like, yo man, what you doing here? Now Joe don't know who the guy is who's checking him about fucking with Guaco.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe responds as a hardened street youth would do, basically with the F you ain't this, that, and the other, Old boy is like, hey man, I don't know why you think you so tough. I mess around and kill your whole family. Joe don't know who he is, so Joe basically is like, you ain't gonna do nothing to nobody, yada, yada, yada. Now he's chasing this guy Guaco. Guaco knows who Joe is now involved in this altercation with. So the guy who was about to get beat up by Joe stops running from Joe, starts pleading with the guy, don't kill Joe's family, don't kill Joe's family. Turns to Joe and say, man, that's Boy George. At this point, this guy Boy George is already famous. He had a line of H out in Harlem called Obsession, and which of course is named after. They had some good marketing. His name came from pop culture, and Obsession was like this mega successful cologne.
Oh, Calvin Klein.
Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
Obsession.
The black and white commercials.
Yeah, Brooke Shield, all that.
Yeah.
Obsession was a monster fragrance for the Calvin Klein line. He's got a line of jive. Back in them days, they would stamp the packs with names.
Right.
And this thing, Obsession, seemed to be it. Sources have it that Boy George had took over from a family known as the Torres family, which was a huge multi-generational H family from the Bronx. They took a hit in the late 70s. 40-some members of the Torres family organization got locked up. Should have kind of been an indication for Mr. Rivera how this game could go. Mm-hmm. But that left a huge vacuum. Legend has it then that Boy George started to get his money working with the Torres family. So anyway, his name is ringing. Joe knows when Guaco tells him, hey man, that's Boy George. You don't want to do that with him.
Right.
Joe said, as soon as he said that's Boy George, he went to tell him, but please don't kill my family. Please don't kill my family. Lesson to be learned. He knew he was playing above his league. Mm-hmm. And that being tough and saving face could be fatal.
That's right.
It was time to fold camp. Game should recognize game. And then the rest of the Fat Joe story is that he apologizes. Everybody squashes the beef. Yeah. Explains to Boy George. He's a good kid. He out here trying to make his way. He didn't know no better. Mm-hmm. Wasn't no disrespect.
Yeah, he was like From what I saw from the story, he's like, I like you. And he wanted, he was about to get put on, basically.
So, right. So, now, 2 weeks after the Guaco situation, they're at a club. A big melee breaks out between, like, Bronx guys and Brooklyn guys. And Joe doing his thing at the club. Again, the 80s, we used to talk about the fist fight, at the club. You just had niggas, go for yours. Everybody go for theirs. But it's a lot more refreshing than the shoot and kill shit of today.
Say it louder.
But